So this story happening a short while ago, car crash reportedly on the M1 here in Johannesburg involving police van transporting suspects. This is the initial information that we have at hand with the reports about 10 victims being involved in this incident. But let's get the latest for you and some clarity with Rob Byrne, who is our SABC News traffic reporter. Rob, good evening to you and welcome. What do we know about what happened?
Yeah, well, we know about as much as you've just mentioned there. So there is a big crash. There are multiple fatalities. The Mike 1 going south is closed. This is near the Athol Oaklands Road, exit in the Melrose area. So you can imagine peak time, the Mike 1 coming out of Sandton, really big queues. It's all the way back through to Marlborough Drive. And given the nature of this crash, it's not going to clear quickly. Obviously, there's fatalities. There's state vehicles involved in this collision as well. So there'll need to be all sorts of investigations. And then motorists going north, coming up after a sort of day at work at Joburg or Braamfontein, now stuck in very heavy traffic from the Parktown side, moving up into the scene as well. So what we're urging members of the public to do, if you've got to get that way between Sandton and Central Joburg, is look at your alternatives. Your alternatives to the east would be obviously Louis Botha down through the Bramley Highlands North area, or the other side of town, just do a trip between Sandton and Joburg using routes like Rivonia and Oxford that'll take you from sort of Sandton down through Lovo, Rosebank and bring you out at Parktown. You've got those alternatives, but you want to be staying away from the Mike 1 for the next few hours. It's really quite bad.
Yeah, and you've said a lot there in that opening, Rob, multiple fatalities. You mentioned state vehicles involved, and it doesn't seem as if this will clear quickly. Just give us a timeline around when did this happen, and just in terms of the response crews to the scene, what can you tell us about whether there's been a heavy EMS response as well as law enforcement?
Yes, obviously it happened around sort of 3:34 p.m. this afternoon. That's when we first sort of picked it up, and EMS are all on the scene there now. All the role players are on the scene. You know, the road is closed, so you've got JMPD there that have put that road closure, that hard road closure of the Mike 1 South into place. And you know, these things normally with fatal collisions, they can take 4 or 5 hours to clear up in some cases. When you're dealing with a multiple fatality incident, and when you're dealing with state vehicles being involved, this could be sometime around sort of 10 p.m., 11 or maybe even midnight before this road reopens.
Well, it's really sad to hear, just the possibility of multiple victims. So this is M1 North, I understand, Rob, or is it on the M1 South? Just recap for us.
Yeah, it's on the southbound side. So you're driving from Sandton and you're driving towards Central Joburg. So the southbound side is closed. The northbound is open. There may be an impact on the northbound in terms of EMS vehicles being there, debris flying from the southbound onto the northbound. So the northbound is heavily backed up, really heavily backed up, moving north from Joburg to Sandton. But it's the southbound run from Sandton into Melrose that's currently closed.
Sounds quite intense, and we had a Google Earth projection there. Just final question then, if you're thinking about navigating this and you're probably, some ways backwards in the queue before the Athol Oaklands off-ramp, what would make sense to try and get off there earlier? Where could you possibly off-ramp?
Well, all of those ramps are already jammed because you've got people trying to get in to a major backlog of traffic, or you've got other motorists trying to get out. So Greyston Drive, Corlett Drive, Athol Oaklands Road, Glenhove Road, they're already jam-packed because of that issue, trying to get on, trying to get out. So what we're saying is if you've got to go between Sandton and Joburg, you've got options. You could even just come through the N1 highway, take the N3 down through Edenvale, cut back at Helden Ace onto the M2 to get into Joburg. You could do that in reverse. You could come off the N3 and then cut down Marlborough Drive if you need to get into Sandton. Or, like we were saying earlier, you've got Louis Botha to the eastern side as an alternative north-south run. Or you've got the Oxford Road, Rivonia Road run between Sandton and Parktown, which can swing into use as well.
All right. Either way, it just sounds tragic and horrid. Rob, thank you very much for the update. A lot of detail there, so we really appreciate what you've shared with us tonight, Rob Byrne. All right, let's go straight then to Xolani Fichler from the JMPD. Xolani, good evening to you and welcome. We've got some information from our traffic reporter about what's happened there. I guess from your side, we'd probably like to know if you have any information on what led to this, what caused this.
At the present moment, firstly, let me say good afternoon. We don't know the actual cause of the accident. I think that still will be investigated by the police since the SAPS vehicle is involved in the accident. But it is alleged that the police vehicle was transporting suspects when this accident occurred. It is really tragic, and I should think it's really frustrating for motorists as well, as traffic is heavily backed up. Rob did mention all those routes that are heavily backed up heading towards that scene. So it is a really terrible scene indeed.
All right. From an operational perspective, Xolani, how do you manage this? What's the first thing you have to do to try and create some order out of the chaos, and as quickly as possible get those who have been injured to hospitals as quickly as possible?
No, definitely. With a serious scene like this, the first thing to do is make sure that we do secure the scene, to make sure that there aren't any secondary accidents that happen. Secondly is to get medical attention for those who are injured, and to, of course, call the relevant stakeholders, as we do see that there are fatalities with this accident. Get the relevant stakeholders to ensure that the scene is processed, and make sure that it is investigated as well. All of the correct information is collected so that there is proper evidence for the accident scene. But after that is to ensure that all the motorists are diverted from that route. In peak hour traffic, people are trying to make their way back home from the various destinations, especially work. So at the present moment, the N1 South, that's being closed off at Corlet Drive, and vehicles are being diverted off Corlet. We are seeing heavy delays on the M1 North as well, as due to onlookers, and Robert did mention that as well. And he also mentioned that there's alternative routes that people can use, and especially in the closest proximities like Louis Botha Avenue, Oxford Road, and Jan Smuts Avenue as well.
All right, so just to reiterate, M1 closed at Corlet. I want to go back, though, to just give us a sense of, and I'm assuming because of the comms and people who are in law enforcement, emergency services, sharing information across the lines of communication that you do. Can you give us a sense of how much deployment there's been in terms of emergency vehicles or fire engines on the scene? What is the scale of the response?
Now, the scale of the response is due to the nature of the emergency. There is enough manpower on ground. There are guys from the City of Johannesburg, the Emergency Management Services, there's paramedics as well. We do have police as well on the scene. All stakeholders who need to be there are there to ensure that those who are injured are getting the treatment that they do need to get as soon as possible, and that the scene is processed as soon as possible as well. Rob did mention that with these type of scenes, we are seeing hours and hours of closures. So as soon and as quick as officials can do their work efficiently, then that's as quick as possible the road will be opened.
Xolani Fihlile, thank you very much for that update. We appreciate it. So the M1 South seriously backed up this afternoon. You heard all the details there. If you missed that, you can certainly find out exactly what's been said and shared in terms of alternatives on our YouTube channel as well.